Welcome back to my channel for a super exciting Leica episode, because here it finally is, the Leica Q3 Monochrom. I was waiting for this camera for a long time. I was always wondering, when will Leica finally bring a Q3 28mm monochrome to market, where basically the color filter has been removed from the sensor, plus here in this particular case, one more aspect which I find very important and will share with you in the course of the video. And once again, I'm super grateful to my friends from Leica Switzerland and Leica Zurich. Guys, you know, I really enjoy our friendship. And it's so great that you always make sure that I get my hands on your new gear early on. And this time it's not a pre-production sample, because there are only about a couple of weeks to go. This is the sales package. It's fully sealed here, as you can see. We are going to unbox this in a moment, and in about 5 days, I actually have to return it to the Leica store in Zurich so that the next influencer can do his review before the official announcement of this new monochrome camera in the Leica Q camp. The game plan for this video is simple. I'm going to unbox it. We'll see what's in the box, and I will share everything you need to know about this new camera with you, of course, in the course of the video. All the specifications, everything that distinguishes the monochrome version from the standard Leica Q3 28. And in the next weeks, you will hear more from me about this Q3 monochrome, because I need to test it out, of course. I'll take it out in the field. You guys know my habits. I will shoot in low light in the evening. I will look into high ISO behavior and dynamic range, all of that. So get buckled up. There is a lot to come about this new camera. And now let's kick this off. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, support my work. For you, it's for free. For me, it means the world. Many thanks for that. And now let's start with the unboxing. Let's get the Leica Q3 28 a little bit out of the way. Let's get the Swiss tool here coming into action. Here we go. And let's open this up carefully, because I have to return it, so I don't want to ruin the packaging. What we'll see now is clear. This whole packaging will fall apart and reveal the inner box. That's the way Leica packagings work these days. And here it is. And let's further get this unboxed. Let's open this here. And let's lift it up here. So exciting to see this. And here it is. Whoa, they really took the word monochrome serious. This is a completely pitch black camera. Look at that. What a beauty. Just love at first sight what I'm seeing here. Look at that. Beautiful. Very beautiful. We come to a couple of design differences to the standard Leica Q3 28 in a moment. Let's before quickly look what else is in the box. We have the usual card where someone signed up. We have paperwork. I don't want to go into details here. We have a leather shoulder strap. Classic matte black finish, very nice. Nothing else is in here. And here we have the USB-C to USB-C cable in this very nice finish. It's not the crappy USB-C to USB-A cable I recently found in my Leica M11P. It's a proper cable. It's the one which connects the USB-C port of the camera with the USB-C port of the iPhone for using remote shooting with the Leica Photos app. So that is actually good. Is there anything else? There is another ring here, which very likely can be mounted on the lens. We have to look into that in a moment. Let's see, anything else? A battery, of course. I have a freshly charged one here, so we'll use this one. This one goes into the charger for the benefit of the next influencer who gets this camera. And I don't think there is anything else in that box. I think that's really it. Nothing more to discover. If I look here, that's it. I clean up the mess on the table in front of me, and then we go right at the core of the matter. All right, so this video is about the Leica Q3 28 monochrome and not about a comparison between the Leica Q3 standard and the Q3 monochrome. But, you know, it doesn't harm to look a little bit at design differences at this point in time. And in order to prevent that people start to complain, I already removed, yes, I did it, guys, the hand grip from the Leica Q3 28mm. with color sensor. So we really have a like-by-like comparison. I also removed my shutter button here, this tiny little design element, which is typically screwed in here. So we can see what's different if we talk about the monochrome camera. And the first thing that's eye-catching to me is the texture on the camera body. Look at this one here. This is a very nice leather texture and is not the geometric pattern we have on the standard Q328. Look at that. Let me try to put them a little bit side by side. I hope you can see this in this way. It's very hard to show in the camera, but the texture, the pattern on the camera body is different, in fact. And they both look nice. I always like the symmetric pattern on the Q328, the standard one. And this one here looks a little bit more like an old school leather texture. If you look at that, it's an irregular pattern in contrast to the geometrically clean pattern we have here on the standard Q3. So that's the first design difference I see here and spot immediately. The second one is the monochrome has no red Leica logo. Here on the Q328 standard, we have a red Leica logo with, is it silver? Yes, it's kind of a white silver Leica engraving. Here there is no logo, nothing you see. But there is, if we look at the top side, here Leica Q3 in white on black engraved right on the hot shoe. And here it's in monochrome, Leica Q3. And it has here monochrome engraved. You see this here? I try to hold it in the light so that you can see it. So here is monochrome. And I must say this looks very, very posh, very valuable. The design of this camera looks really good. The next design difference I immediately see is here on the shutter speed dial, because that A here for the shutter speed automatic is in kind of, I don't know, is it light blue gray? Is it blue gray? Whatever it is, but it's definitely not in red like we have it here on the standard version. Look at that red capital A here. It's different on the shutter speed dial of the Q3 monochrome. Let's go back to the front side. I think otherwise the texture is a difference. The missing logo here on the Q3 monochrome is a difference, but otherwise they look pretty much the same. Let's get the lens hood off for a moment. Let's see if we see any difference here. Ooh, this sits very firm. Nice. Look at that. This is very firm. I hardly get it off. It's really good if it sits firm, because if you carry this in your backpack, you will be very happy if it doesn't get off the lens automatically without you actually wanting it. And if we look here from the front side, on the lens is exactly the same lens, Summilux 28mm widest open f1.7. Let's remove the lens hood for a moment. It's the same lens hood. And the lens is indeed exactly the same. Look here, Leica and then Summilux 1 to 1.7, 28mm. So this is exactly the same. On the lens hood, the standard one, we have here made in Germany, and then Leica Camera Wetzlar here engraved. I don't know if you can see this. On the monochrome version, it's the same, made in Germany, Leica Camera Wetzlar. So the lens hood is exactly the same. I don't think they produce a dedicated lens hood for the Leica Q3 monochrome. That should be exactly the same. Here's the UV filter mounted here, not at this point in time. You see the difference here. I should have removed that for the ones who will drop me a comment. Why did you not remove the UV filter and the protector? But anyway, otherwise from the front side, this looks exactly the same. From the top side, we already covered kind of the same, but here it says monochrome and we have, I don't know, still don't know. Is it gray or light blue? It's a capital A. Here it's a red capital A. And we also have the difference here on the on-off switch. This dot here, which indicates that the camera is on. I do this in a moment when the battery is in, you see. That dot here has the same color as the capital A here. Let's call it light blue-gray. And that is not the case here. Here it's in red in the same way as the capital letter A for the automatic when it comes to shutter speed. So these are all the differences we have. Everything else is the same. Hot shoe we covered, engraving here we covered. From the back side, totally the same. I don't see any difference. This is exactly the same. It's the same camera, of course. So I'm not surprised to see that. And from the bottom side, there is also no difference. This is exactly the same, everything we are used to from Leica Q3 cameras. So that's basically the end of my design comparison. There is not much more to say here. What's much more interesting are the inner values of this new family member in the Leica Q lineup from Leica. Let's quickly reassemble all this. So this was the lens hood here for the Q3 standard. Let's screw it on. Snaps in. Nice. This is the lens cap. And here we have the lens hood for the Q3 Monochrom. Should also snap in a nice way. Here we go. The build quality is maybe even a little bit fine-tuned compared to what I'm known from the Leica Q3 28 standard. Look at this lens cap, how this is sitting. Very, very firm on that lens hood here. You can screw it off a little bit, but it sits very firm. This is something they improved from the previous version where the lens hood came off too easily, but here you can still just pull it. You know, it sits firmly enough, but you can pull it off easily. Here, hardly possible. Even if I apply a lot of force, I cannot pull it off. I need to screw it off. And that is a good thing. I don't think that the lens hood can sit too firmly on the lens, because whenever you have it in a backpack, it's good that it doesn't come off accidentally. Now you saw at the unboxing this black ring here. That's also in the box for the Leica Q3 28 standard. I show you quickly what it is. If you want the camera more compact and want to get rid of the lens hood, you need something to screw in as a replacement, and that's that ring. Have a look here. Very simple. We can just easily screw this in. And then the gap here vanishes, and this looks much more tidy, much more clean, much nicer than if nothing would sit here. So that's what this ring is for. And I screw it off now because I want to have the lens hood on. And in terms of UV filters or protectors, you have exactly the same setup as on the Q3 28 standard. And typical 49mm UV filters, protectors, polar filters, ND filters, what have you, will fit under that lens hood, in contrast to the Leica Q3 43, where it is a bit more tricky, as I showed in a couple of videos on my channel. I forgot to mention, I already applied here a display protector, so I'm already very diligent with my own gear. I protect it. I use protectors on lenses. I use protectors on LCD screens. But this is not even my own camera. I have to return it in about 5 days. So I want to make sure I don't damage anything. I want to really give it back in the same condition as I got it from the Leica store in Zurich. That's why I use a protector already here. It also takes away reflections. And by the way, what's interesting, if you look for protectors and you have a Leica Q3, here I found a Leica M10P anti-reflex protector, and that is actually working quite well on the LCD screen of the Leica Q3. I found this somewhere on the shelf in a box, and look at that. It has a little bit of a bezel here on the side, but generally protects the LCD, in particular on the height dimension, very, very well. And this will do the trick for the few days I'm having this camera and being allowed to shoot it. I'm really looking forward to talk about the specifications of the new Leica Q3 Monochrom. Let's call this one from now on in the video the Q3M, and the standard one the Q3. This makes my life a bit easier. And the specifications of this new Q3M, they are spectacular. And I think it's more interesting to talk about them if I can show you from time to time things in the menu. That's why I think I should quickly get a freshly charged battery into that camera body here. And I also want to include an SD card. I never know which direction this is. This is the right one. And then we can switch on the camera for the first time and can look up certain items also in the menu. So let's get this done. I'm sure there will be a pretty nice animation at the first start. Let's see. Here we go. All black and white, of course. This is a black and white camera, guys. Monochrome sensor. Look at the nice graphical animation they do here. Leica Q3 Monochrom. Now we have to set this quickly up. English. And we skip the Leica Photos app. Yes, I want to skip it. Time zone +1 is fine. No daylight saving time at this point in time in the year. I think day, month, year is fine. What do we have here? We have today the 11th. So let's go here in the other direction to 11. Here we go. We have November and we have 2025. So we are already good on this one here. And on time setting, Let me check quickly. 3 minutes before 9 p.m. So it's getting quite late here in Switzerland. 24 hours is fine. And then we go here to 20 and we go here to 57. And then we are good to go. I think that's it. And I can half press the shutter button for the first time. Let's get the lens cap off. And I think the camera is ready. Autofocus works. You see the green confirmation on the rectangle here, and everything is in black and white. Now let's start to talk about specifications. And the sensor in the Q3 and the Q3M is a CMOS BSI sensor. And BSI stands for backside illuminated and means very good handling of low light situations. But here we have a monochrome sensor, and typically this means that the color filter has been removed. We also have here, in the same way as on the Leica M11, M11P, the Leica Q328, Q343, and the Leica SL3, the so-called triple resolution technology. And the menu is slightly different. If I go here into the Leica Q3 and go into the menu and go to, first of all, photo file format, I can choose here DNG and JPEG. And then I have a separate menu entry, which is called DNG resolution. And here you see what it is. So you have 60 megapixel, 36 megapixel, and 18 megapixel. It looks slightly different in the menu of the Q3M. Let's go there. And let's go here to file format. You also have here, you know, the different combinations, LDNG, MDNG, SDNG, and then you combine it with all kinds of JPEG resolutions. But if we go back into the main menu, we don't have in the same way, let me hold this side by side so you see it. We don't have in the same way here a DNG resolution after file format. And by the way, here on the Q3M, they call it file format. Here on the Q3, they call it photo file format, if you look at that. And also the different combinations are represented differently. Here you have a split in DNG resolution and later in JPEGs in JPEG resolution. That's not the case here. So here you need to be aware, if you go for LDNG, that means you have only DNG files, no JPEGs, and it has 60 megapixel of native resolution. If you go for MDNG, you have only DNGs and with 36 megapixel, and here with 18 megapixel. And then here you have the large versions combined on the RAW side with the large versions on the JPEG side. And here with MJPEG, here with SJPEG, and so on. So you can scroll through all kinds of combinations here. And it doesn't specify any longer the resolution, as you see here, for instance, under DNG resolution, where you explicitly see what you get if you choose it. So that seems to be different in the menu. So there are a couple of differences we'll find in the course of the video, but it has the triple resolution in the same way as its peers with color sensor. And then in the introduction, I mentioned another aspect which I find very interesting, very important, and that's that this sensor here has no optical low pass filter. So no anti-aliasing filter. And that means there might be situations where you actually will discover some more ray patterns in the image, but you get a much higher sharpness. And some of you might notice from the introduction back then, many years, from the Sony RX1R, where actually the anti-aliasing filter was removed, so the optical low-pass filter, and this created an insanely sharpness in the images. And that's what you get here from this Q3M, no low-pass filter, and that means increased sharpness and even more details in your images. From other monochrome cameras in the Leica world, we know that they are very well dealing with noise in high ISO situations. And if we look at the Q3 here, let me quickly go here into the menu. Let me go to ISO. And here, if I go to the highest value, you see the highest value on the Q3 is 100K ISO. And monochrome sensors typically allow for pushing the envelope more. And you see here, if I go into the menu, let's go here to ISO, and I go to that setting, the maximum ISO on this Q3M actually is double, is 200 200,000 ISO. And that is, of course, if you deal with noise coming from a camera sensor, you typically have also color noise. And by definition, by the nature of the design and concept, with a monochrome sensor, there is no color noise. And in general, these monochrome sensors from Leica, they are drilled for high ISO shooting without significant noise. And that means Leica could actually push the envelope here a lot and get the double maximum ISO of 200,000 compared to 100,000 on the standard version. And that is, of course, quite nice and is something that really caught already my attention, which I will try out in the next couple of weeks. I really want to see how usable are images with, let's say, 50,000 ISO, 100,000 ISO, and 200,000 ISO. Because if these images would be usable, you would never again need a tripod, right? You could always carry this camera. And by the way, you have here in the lens the same optical image stabilization on the Q3M as what you have on the Q3. So you also gain about 3 stops in terms of slower shutter speed, still handheld shooting by the optical image stabilization in the lens, which is of course quite nice. And by the way, also to mention right here, you have of course in both cameras a leaf shutter, so you have also very high flash sync speed. A significant difference between the autofocus system is that on a monochrome sensor, there is basically not really face detection doable in the same way as on a color sensor. And face detection is not on that camera. This is a contrast detection autofocus. But Leica came up with something smart and they supplemented with what they call artificial intelligence autofocus. So by computational photography, they enhance the autofocus speed, which otherwise would be lagging behind the Q3 based on its triple concept of contrast detection, face detection, and subject detection. Let's go into the menu. Let's go here to field. And then in the autofocus mode, you see we have here eye, face, body detection. We have animal detection. This is, by the way, in beta mode, beta version forever, which is quite funny. They never went from beta to final production. And you have the same autofocus mode settings here as what you have on the Q3. They are all also included on the Q3M. But no face detection, only contrast detection and subject detection. So the triple autofocus concept here, contrast, face detection, subject detection, boils down here to contrast detection, subject detection plus AI autofocus, which is something I need to explore more. I've only seen this buzzword in the marketing material so far. The viewfinder on the Q3M is an OLED viewfinder, electronic viewfinder, of course, so EVF. It has the same resolution as the Q3, 5.76 megapixel, but it's in black and white, of course, because every signal it receives from a monochrome sensor, so no color information here. We have the same digital frame selector that's typically out of box on a function button here. I think it's here. Let's try. So this is natively 28mm focal length. Then the first frame simulates 35mm focal length, then 50mm, then 75mm, and then 90mm. And that's a quite usable feature, by the way. And in a couple of videos at the very beginning, when the Q3 was introduced, I actually showed this and also showed sample images, so you can look this up on my channel. We also have the same 3-inch screen here. It's tiltable, so you can shoot on the ground, in particular for macro. That's quite useful. You can shoot overhead if you want. And you have the same functionality here as on the Q3. In terms of high-speed connectivity, if you want to connect to the Leica Photos app, it's the same concept on the Q3M as what you have on the Q3. And that's pretty cool, we have 8K video. And 8K video coming from a black and white monochrome Leica sensor, how cool is that? I don't know what we need to do to celebrate this appropriately. It's really, really cool. And I show you quickly. We can swipe here in the same way as on the Leica Q3. And then we are in video mode. And if I go into the menu here, I have the video profiles. And here you can dial in all kinds of profiles. Let's quickly go here, for instance, to profile number 2. And if we go here to the settings, you basically see what you have here. You can have cinematic 8K, 8K, you can have all different video profiles here. I mean, this is, guys, professional video shooting natively with a monochrome sensor without a low pass filter. If this is not a reason to print some t-shirts with the Leica logo on it, right? This is really, really cool because on the M cameras, video capabilities were given up a long time ago by Leica, and now you get it here in the Q3M, and you get it in this insane resolution of 8K with all the profiles for video shooting you can dream of. So this is absolutely fantastic. And we have, of course, here also appropriate ports for that. First of all, we have a USB-C port, but then we also have the same HDMI port, which is a type D 2.1 as what we have on the standard Leica Q3. So there's a lot going on, a lot to try out. And if you are in black and white footage, you will love this camera because it's, up to my knowledge, the only camera in the world who shoots natively with a monochrome sensor up to 8K or cinematic 8K. And we have, for the very first time in a Q camera, Leica content credentials, which helps you to protect your rights, your property, your footage. And this is kind of the content authenticity initiative capability we have also in a couple of other cameras, but due to hardware reasons and the production cycle of Leica didn't make it into the SL3, but for instance in the Leica M11P. And here we have it now in a Q camera, and that is not in the Leica Q328 and not in the Leica Q343, but here in the Leica Q3M, because they had to redesign the hardware anyway, they probably included the hardware chips which you need to make this happen. And here it is. Very useful if you are black and white shooter. From now on, your footage is significantly safer and more secure than it used to be before. We have wireless charging with an optional hand grip. If you want to use that, I never use it. I use either the USB-C port here or an external charger. And we can, of course, also use the double charger, which I showed in other videos for the Leica SL3 cameras. That one works also for the batteries because it's the same battery as what we have in the Leica SL3, and it's also the larger capacity battery. If we look here, is the 2200 milliampere battery, which was introduced, I think, a couple of years back. It used to be 1800 milliampere hours before. Now it's 2200 milliampere hours. All right, I think I covered a lot of the main specifications already, but there are a few more points I want to make. We spoke about the EVF already, 5.76 megapixel OLED, but black and white, of course. We also have the usual diopter control here. So this is going from -4 to +2. So if you have difficulties with your eyesight for whatever reasons, this is great because you can do the correction and can use this EVF for a very clear picture. I also want to quickly mention shutter speed. You see on the shutter speed dial, I'm currently in A. Here is longer exposures. Here is the fastest I can dial in on the shutter speed dial, and that's 1/2000 seconds, and is actually end of story for mechanical shutter. Let me quickly show you that in the menu. If we go here to shutter type, I'm on mechanical, and the fastest shutter speed on mechanical shutter is 1/2000 seconds, and the longest exposure is 60 minutes, which is really, really cool. Now, if you switch to electronic shutter, you can actually go faster. So let's go here to, on the dial, to 1/2000 seconds. Let's go into the menu. Let's go here to the shutter speed, and then we can actually go here, if you see that, up to 1/16,000 seconds under electronic shutter. Now, I recommend under all circumstances, if you don't need to be that fast, you know, stay on mechanical shutter, because mechanical shutter means you will have no rolling shutter effects if you have moving subjects in the scene. You can go to electronic, but at the expense of maybe rolling shutter effects. I recommend to never go on hybrid, where the camera should switch automatically between mechanical and electronic, depending on how fast you want to go. If I go to hybrid, you actually have the full range available. Let me show you. You see here, 1/16,000 is available, and this is an electronic shutter. And if I cross the 1/2000 seconds from here on, it will be mechanical shutter. But I don't like that. I think the photographer should consciously steer whether he is as fast as a maximum of 1/2000 seconds or faster. And if this is fast enough, 1/2000 seconds, stay on mechanical. It will give you better image quality. And on electronic shutter, it's the same. The longest exposure you can have is 60 minutes in the same way as on mechanical shutter. And what I already indicated on shutter speed is the fastest flash sync speed actually is up to 1/2000 seconds, which is congruent with the maximum or the fastest shutter speed on mechanical shutter. And that's because Leica Q cameras have a leaf shutter in the lens. And that's kind of the same thing as what you have in the Hasselblad X system, where the leaf shutter in the lens enables you to have a flash swing speed up to 1/2000 seconds. And with some XCD lenses, actually, it's even 1/4000 seconds. So that's quite nice, gives you a lot of flex also for studio work if you want to do that in black and white. Last but not least, in terms of weight, the camera is in the same camp as its peers, the Q328 and the Q343. Tiny little differences in weight for the two Q3 cameras with color filter. Here it's without battery 662 gram and with the battery 746 gram. And the battery capacity I already covered is the larger one, 2200 milliampere hours. And you get approximately 300 shots out of that according to CIPA standards. We spoke about still image photography with triple resolution, 60, 36 and 18 megapixel, now natively in black and white, very likely insanely sharp based on the fact that there is no optical low pass filter sitting on the sensor, with maybe some Moire patterns from time to time, but generally will be fine. And we spoke about video capabilities in black and white now. 8K, cinematic 8K, 4K, cinematic 4K, what have you. How cool is that? All based on a native monochrome sensor. And last but not least to mention, of course, we also have a macro mode here in the same way as we have it on the Q3. And the standard minimum focusing distance is 30 centimeter, 0.3 meter. If I switch into macro mode, it's 0.17 meter, which is the same on the standard Q3. See here, 0.3 and then 0.17. So this camera is ready for close-up shooting, and this will be based on monochrome footage from a native monochrome sensor. Let me conclude the video because for a first introduction of a new camera, I think I shared with you really everything you need to know about this new camera, the technology, the specifications, the capabilities, and I also shared with you my excitement about this new monochrome camera. But if you want to summarize, what are the takeaways we have here? First of all, we have a fully fledged Q3. This is kind of the same camera as the standard Q3, but it uses a dedicated monochrome sensor without an optical low pass filter, which means you can capture images with very likely insane sharpness. I need to put this to test, as said at the very beginning of the video. Increased dynamic range and tonal depth, unfiltered by color, uncompromised, in detail in any light condition. If you're a low light shooter and you don't care about color, this is the only camera you need, I'm very sure. And yes, it's early promises. I need to further test it, but I've shot a lot of monochrome cameras from Leica in my life, and this will be no exception. It will be fantastic. The second takeaway is you have now a native ISO range from 100 to 200,000. This doubles the highest ISO of the standard Q3, which means if you're a low light shooter, and given that monochrome sensors are not very vulnerable to noise, let's say you are shooting concerts and you don't care about color anyway because you want to capture the essential and not get distracted by colors, this is your camera, right? We'll try it out in the next days and weeks. You will get more videos from me to that topic where I shoot the camera with insanely high ISOs, but you can very likely capture high quality images with almost no visible noise in very dim light conditions, which is super cool, of course. And then the last point, which I also have to test, but which is promising. Yes, we don't have face detection here in the autofocus system. We have only contrast detection, but we keep the subject detection we have on the standard Q3, and Leica supplemented the autofocus system with a newly developed artificial intelligence-based autofocus technology. And according to what I hear from my Leica friends, which are going in and out in the headquarters, it's supposed to be really good. It seems to be a real replacement for face detection, and face detection, don't forget, in this case, is not about human faces, but about face detection with pH at the beginning. All right, that's all I wanted to say and show. Stay tuned. There is much more to come on this camera. I'm super excited. I think this video carried it over. I don't want to overdo it, but this is a camera I really waited for, and I hope you share my enthusiasm about this new Leica Q family member. If you liked that video, don't forget to drop me a thumbs up. Stay tuned on my channel. There's always more to come. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and healthy, and of course, peace out.